next week. As a whole, the concept itself is wholesome. To celebrate the anniversary of the day your life began. On a more worldly scale, I just find it interesting that different cultures place significance on different stages of life. Of course, plenty of them celebrate the transition from childhood to adulthood. Some just celebrate making it past infancy. Others, out west, celebrate their later years as a full life cycle. The lives people live do paint a beautiful picture here on Earth. But I'm not celebrating my birthday this year. I marked it on my calendar, big and bold, and I made sure I had the time off well in advance. I got all kinds of supplies, food, alcohol, entertainment. I'm not going out on some retreat in the mountains or finding some resort to experience vibrancy day or night. Hell, I don't even plan to go spend it with someone I love. No, not a single person I love. Even if that means they feel I love them less. Nah. This year I'm just staying right here in this old apartment, in this little room with no windows and only one way in. I have no idea why it started, but my 25th birthday was the first time the gift was ever presented to me. It was an ash white box just bigger than my outstretched hand with a black ribbon. It was sitting on my bed at the end of the night after getting back from a heavy night of drinking. I didn't know what to think. I pulled the ribbon back and lifted the lid just to find a single picture, like a digital picture printed out and cut unevenly. The picture was just a bunch of trees in a field. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were nice trees. They looked well maintained. I had meant to ask my roommates about it and get some answers, but of course, by the time I woke up the next morning, I didn't think of it at all. Now, it wasn't until my 26th birthday that real concern struck me. By that time, I was living on my own in this same apartment I'm at now. I hadn't gone out that night. I had work, of course. It was a good shift, Front and back of the house came out when we closed, pass around some smoke, celebrate. Good stuff, all that. I pulled into the complex and saw the spot closest to my place was open. Happy birthday to me. Everything looked normal. I mean, no signs of anyone having dropped by. The door was locked. Nothing looked out of place in the entryway. Stopped by the bathroom on my way to the bedroom. Still, there on the bed, right where it was the year before. Same box. Ash white, black ribbon. I went through the apartment just everywhere I possibly could. Checked the balcony, checked every room. I checked places someone couldn't hide. I checked the medicine cabinet. I checked the fridge, under the sink. Like, there was no signs that someone had been there. I don't know what I was expecting to find, like shoe prints on the carpet, but still, I had the only key. And that wasn't there when I left, and it's here now. That same box. And I know it wasn't my roommates from last year. Like, I hadn't talked to them in months. Once I had taken the time to cool down, I knew I wasn't in danger. I just checked the house, the door was locked. I decided, what the hell. I went in the room, grabbed the box, and tore it open. As surprised as I had been to see the box on my bed when I walked in that empty apartment, I'd have to say I was chilled when I saw what was inside. I lifted the lid and saw a picture of us at the restaurant out back, standing in a circle, passing some smoke around. This had to have been taken like 30 minutes ago. The person who took it must have just left this apartment. I went around and checked again, knowing there was nobody there. Not only was the picture's presence here not making sense, but the picture's contents didn't make any sense to me either. It showed us all out back passing the smoke. It was taken from maybe 10, 15 feet away from the closest person. Where we were smoking was in an enclosed area for just the dumps, the trash cans, the oil dumps. It's a high stone wall that has one entrance for feet and one entrance for vehicle, and someone did not come in there while we were standing there, which means they would have had to have been standing right against the wall the entire time to take this picture without any one of us noticing. Thinking about it chilled me to my bones. Why would they take this picture, and why would they leave it here at this apartment? Why did they do this last year? What does any of this have to do with anything? I wanted to bring it up at work and ask some folks if maybe they did see someone, and maybe I didn't, and they just didn't mention it, but the thought of having to explain the entire situation just didn't feel on the table. I suddenly felt very alone in this problem with whoever this was. In the weeks that followed, though, nothing ever happened past the picture. The visceral fear I'd felt that night ebbed farther and farther from my mind until I just fell back into life. And it was a good year, too. I started serving at the restaurant some nights and cooking others, so that extra tip money was crazy nice. You know, on top of that, I had a couple flings with a couple out-of-state girls who had to go home. It worked fine by me. My birthday rolled around again, and I got off work a little early because our crew is the best and covered for me. That night, I was on track to making it a few flings that year, and so I went home to clean up. Headed out for the beach house Sophia was staying at with her friends from back home. When I got there, though, no lights were on. There wasn't a car between the stilts where I had imagined they would be parking. I called her phone, but it just rang and the voicemail was filled. And so, feeling a bit more than snubbed on my birthday, I went up the road to the bar to see what I could ease. You know, after a few tequila shots and even one on the house from the gal behind the bar for my birthday, it wasn't so bad after all. Started to make conversation with a group of frat guys a couple years younger than me. A group of college girls walked in. It was a done deal. They were renting a place here pretty close on the water. They invited all of us over, apparently on their parents' dime. After a few more shots and rolling a couple up, We had ourselves a proper summer night there on the ocean's edge. When I came home the next morning, of course, there on my bed, ash white box, black ribbon. Again, I checked the entire apartment just to ease my mind, but there weren't any signs anyone had been there. I pulled the ribbon and opened the box. I didn't understand what I was looking at. The picture was taken from behind the back row of seats in what looked like an SUV. I recognized the person driving. It was Sophia. She was wearing what she had been wearing the day before. My eyes whelmed with tears when I saw, in the rearview mirror, Sophia's eyes staring directly back into mine through the picture. They were wider than I had ever seen anybody's eyes be. It didn't look like she was in fear or shock. It just looked like her eyes were unnaturally wide, staring directly into me. And just as terrifying as where her eyes were is where her eyes were not. I saw on the dashboard they were doing over 60, but in front of her I didn't see road. I only saw a tree. Those eyes staring up at me from that picture are burned into my brain. Honestly, I didn't know what to think about it all. I never heard from Sophia again, but I hadn't heard from any of the girls who were just down for a summer. Still, the fear didn't abate as quickly as it had before. For weeks and months after Sophia's picture showed up, I wrestled with telling somebody, anybody, anything. Just asking for help. But at this point, I hadn't been keeping the pictures, and even if I had been, there just was no way to explain this that doesn't sound crazy. And maybe I am crazy. Maybe once a year I detach from reality. I wish that were the case. After the picture showed up on my birthday through a locked door, I had decided to set up small cameras, nanny cams, anything around the apartment. Something that would alert me in case somebody had been there while I was away. And on top of that, I got a dog. You know, he was still a pup by the time my next birthday rolled around, but he was a big old pup, and it made me feel safer, so. The fear and helplessness I felt about my birthday was feeling more contained and addressed. So life went on. Now my 28th birthday was shaping up to be supremely unextraordinary. I had pivoted away from kitchen work to working from home. The pay was nice, and the opportunity to get away from such a demanding job was more than tantalizing. You know, I enjoyed each day at work more than I used to, but one thing I didn't consider was the lack of social interaction, truly. You know, you might get an email or Teams message, but you're not around in those other people's presence, and there's something basic and fundamental in that presence that I was beginning to miss around the time my birthday rolled around. So I made some plans with some friends, and we had such a reinvigorating night. We ate, we drank, we danced a little, we drank a little more. Our DD dropped me off at my place around 2 in the morning, and I could not wait for bed. And I hadn't been thinking about it, but the thought of laying in bed actually brought to mind the box, and suddenly all the fun in my night was sullied by apprehension. I hadn't received a notification that someone was moving around the house from the cameras. Somehow that didn't convince me. I half stumbled through the front door, calling for Shadow, who I assumed would be close. When Shadow didn't rush to me as I entered, I damn near sobered up. I called his name louder and started to tear the house up looking for him. The door was definitely locked when I got here. The balcony door was too. There was nowhere for the dog to hide. I checked under the bed, in the closets, in the bathtub, everywhere. I wanted to call the police, but I was drunk as hell, and honestly, I had no idea what I was going to say. Like, my dog is missing, but the door was locked, and someone has been stalking me for years and leaving pictures on my bed without opening the door, and I think they took him, and I don't have any of those pictures now. Yeah, right. I felt like I was going to be sick. In my search for Shadow, I did go to my bedroom and I did see the package sitting on my bed, same as always. Ash white, black ribbon. An unwelcome visitor making my bed its home. I opened the camera app on my PC and started the recording for the day. I saw Shadow being completely normal all day long, even late into the night. I know I had gotten home about 2 in the morning, and at 1:55 in the living room camera, I saw Shadow walk into the living room, into the dining room, which sits behind the door as you open it to the apartment. He did something I've never seen him do. He just sat in the corner of the dining room, staring directly at the camera I was using. He didn't lay down. He wasn't moving and sniffing around the movements of some small creature I couldn't see. He was in the corner, unblinking, staring directly at me now. I broke out in chills as I sat staring at the screen. From the timestamp, I knew I was only minutes away from arriving home, and so the confusion and the terror were mounting as I struggled to understand where Shadow was right now, despite this absolutely creepy behavior. Less than 10 minutes passed after Shadow started staring at the camera from the opposite corner. I saw myself pass the window beside the door, and I knew I was about to walk in. Shadow was still right there in the corner, staring at the camera. The door swung open. It blocked Shadow from the camera. I came in, calling his name just like I remember. I looked both directions when entering the apartment. I knew when I walked in he was not in that corner. All that my mind could muster was panic and to wonder what the hell was going on. I sped out to the dining room after watching the video, just to confirm what my eyes had already told me. There was no sign. It was like he was there one moment, staring at the camera directly at me, and literally the next he was just gone. That realization set in, and every hair follicle felt like it was trying to peel away from my body from the chills in my spine. I didn't realize I still had it, but I held the box in my hand, shaking on its own volition. I reached the other shaking hand up to that box with the black ribbon, pulled it and let it fall. I pulled off the lid, and inside sat a picture of Shadow with his tail tucked between his legs, backed into that very same corner. My fear turned to rage at the thought of someone making Shadow feel so scared and taking them, but that rage was again replaced when I noticed Shadow's eyes. They weren't his. They were very human, and they were very wide, staring out of the picture at me, filled with a tangible terror. I burned that box and that picture. That picture must have been taken sometime right before I got home. He was in that same corner. I checked my footage again and again. There was no way that picture was taken at that angle, and I do not see who took that picture standing in frame. The helplessness and isolation set in full swing. Those feelings did not eventually abate throughout the year as they had previously. I've been so haunted this year. I get through work and try to enjoy the time in between, but the reality of what the hell happened to my dog right in front of my eyes, it keeps me awake. I feel like I can never let my guard down at night. I don't hear noises or see anything, so I haven't gone to a doctor to talk about mental health, but sometimes when my eyes are closed, I feel like I'm being watched so vividly. Every time I go out and come back late, I have to check every room in the house and watch the recordings just to see if anything happened. Nothing ever does. The months have dragged on, but the night remains fresh in my mind. I watch that night's recordings and see Shadow just disappear in the time it took for me to open and close the door. It's probably not good for me to relive that horror so often, but I can't go to sleep to it. The danger is palpable. Ignoring it is a false comfort. I know it'll be back. If it ever even fucking left. Like I said, this year I'm ready as I can be. I'm gonna be waiting this year out in the bathroom. Something tells me I don't want to be in the bedroom when the present is left. I've got food and drinks in a couple coolers. I only plan on being here from sundown till sunup, but it makes me feel more safe and secure to have a bunker vibe going with plenty more than I need. I bought myself some expensive takeout and settled in for what I hoped was going to be a very uneventful night. I left every single light in the apartment on and locked myself with my supplies in the bathroom. I was just watching Netflix and working through the handle I'd bought for tonight, but it was already past midnight and I was getting so bored and sore from my bathtub bed. I was doing everything I could to stay up till the sun came up, but the boredom and the alcohol was numbing me so well. I almost figured I might as well go lay down in my own bed in my own home on my own birthday, to be honest. The courage was swelling at the indignity of my bathtub bed. Almost immediately, that courage sublimed. I heard movement from the front of the apartment. I immediately opened the program on my phone to check the nanny cams, but saw the door was still locked. There was no one in the apartment anywhere. But still, I could hear them walking around the living room just on the other side of the wall in the tub. I heard them walk up on the couch. I even heard them take a step on top of the coffee table. I heard scratching on the ceiling. All of the drunkenness, all of the bravery and boredom soured into pure fear as my body lay motionless, feeling completely apart from my mind. Suddenly, I heard my bedroom door squeal like it had been pushed open on the opposite end of the apartment. More scratching sounds. My heart was beating out of my chest, the pictures of Sophia in shadow, those eyes staring right at me. The terror was engulfing even my own survival instincts. I wanted to scream. My vision was blurring and my thoughts were becoming smoke. I was passing out from hyperventilation. All of my reality became a pinpoint. The only existence in the universe was me, that door, and that knocking. I passed out from fright. I woke up a full 6 hours later. It was 11 in the morning and the sun should have been well up in the sky. My body ached from the place I lay and the stress suffered the night before. I checked the cameras again, knowing it wouldn't matter. I thought about staying in that bathroom all day long and never leaving, but the thought of another night in the bathtub and not knowing what was waiting on the other side of the door, I didn't have it in me. I eventually opened the bathroom door and froze when I looked down to see an ash-white box wrapped in a black ribbon. Not on my bed like it had always been, but right outside this door. The nausea and fright from earlier this morning flooded back into me. Everything felt so wrong. I picked up the box and pulled the bow, my shaking hand again reaching for the lid. The world melted around me when I pulled back the lid to see a picture taken from underneath the door. Only, again, it wasn't possible. All of last night I spent pinned in the tub by fear. The picture I was looking at showed me down on my hands and knees, crawling close to the bottom of the door. I was twisting my neck to get a good look under the door to the point where it looked like my head was almost upside down. And my eyes, they were so wide. My skin crawled, my hair stood on end. My eyes watered, staring back into the picture, showing myself behaving so unlike myself.